We're Hassani and Danielle Pettiford, and we're a real couple with real problems who almost called it quits.
I was very frustrated. I became very disconnected, very jaded and cold.
We have 4 children, going on 20 years of marriage, and we practice what we preach.
Our mission, to change the way couples relate to one another and teach them the skills needed to improve the quality of their relationships.
This is the Couples Academy Show.
Well, welcome everyone to the Couples Academy Show. My name is Hassani.
I'm Janella.
Roderick.
We are the Couples Academy practitioners. Glad to have you on. Now, I have been away for quite some time. It's been about 2 weeks. Danielle and I, as you know, we had a trip to Africa. It was amazing. We were in Lagos and Abuja, Nigeria. So we spent a week there, and we were truly inspired and empowered, even though we came over there to do our work. But then as soon as we touched down, we then went to Vegas for a week to celebrate our 20th year anniversary. So we've been away for quite some time, but we're glad that we're back. We're ready to dig in deep. The practitioners have been doing an amazing job. So thank you for who you are and for what you do. I'm excited to jump into a new conversation this morning, a conversation that I think is critically important. It's one of the things that so many people struggle with in their relationship. I don't care if they're a month in, a year in, 5 years in. For some reason, we're still struggling with this question. Why did my spouse do it? Why did he do it? Why did she do it? I just don't get it. I just don't understand. And it's hard to move on, and it's hard to heal if we don't understand the why. We've covered this a number of times, but I feel like it's important to revisit the conversation, to drill down just a little bit deeper so that we're all aware, so that we can take those steps to move forward. So today's topic is why I cheated on my partner. Now, obviously, there's no way that we could cover all of the reasons. There is an incalculable number of reasons why people do what they do. However, based upon research and based upon polls and based upon conversations and based upon the work that we've been doing over the last number of years working with couples, these are probably the most common ones that we hear regularly. So we're not here to justify. Now, before we get started, we just want to let you know that there is no justification for the response to the cause, right? You have cause and effect. The effect is I cheated, but there was a cause. We're not dealing with the effect, and the effect is not a justification for the cause. So let's make this crystal clear, because some people really can't even tolerate this conversation. They get so emotional because it should have never happened. And you're right, it should have never happened. It was damaging. You're right, it was damaging. And now we're trying to rebuild what has been damaged. And in order to effectively do it, we have to have a clear understanding as to the why, get closure from it so that we can move forward. And what a great panel of experts that we have today to speak into this issue. And so we're going to dive right in, why I cheated on my partner. I know that chats are going to be blowing up this morning, and we want that. Your comments and your questions are really appreciated. So let's jump right in. Number one, I had low self-esteem and received little to no validation. Now, I can speak at this or to this for quite some time, but I do want to bring in our practitioners to really speak into this. Janella, you've been on the show countless times. You've been counseling couples for quite some time. Tell me about this whole idea of how low self-esteem could cause a person to cheat, because it's not registering. I'm not understanding it. I can't connect these dots. Help the people understand the connection between those two.
This is a huge one. Low self-esteem can really, one, wreck an individual and definitely a relationship. So when you think of your marriage, your home, you think that that's the place where all needs are met. That's your safe place. It should be a place where there's just love, admiration, and joy. But if a person is suffering with self-esteem and they cannot turn to their spouse and work through that or figure out what the problem is, outside forces can easily creep in. And because the person is already emotionally vulnerable to, that part, they can easily get into an affair or into a relationship because they're not getting their needs met at home. So if you're already feeling low, you're trying to make it through life, you go to your spouse and you share things with them, They don't hear it, they don't see it, they're ignoring you. So day after day goes on and on. The stress begins to build, the loneliness, the lowliness, all of that is constantly building up. So you go off to work and then someone shows you attention or
Mm.
overhear a
Yeah.
conversation and spark up something, and now you're intrigued. Now you're like, oh, this is looking pretty good over there. I'm not getting any of my needs met at home. I'm feeling down, but now this person has said something to me and I feel alive again. I feel that spark. Now my self-esteem is starting to build. So now I'm looking forward to seeing that person at work. And now we have a huge problem in our relationship.
Wow. And all that started with an internal feeling of not feeling value, not feeling
Mhm.
Yes.
worth, not having esteem. Roderick, weigh in. What are your thoughts on this particular topic?
Well, when you're talking about low self-esteem, I mean, there's always a why. I mean, even with this topic, we talked about addressing the why that everybody needs. But that low self-esteem usually happens at a much earlier age, a younger age. And as we talk about a lot with Couples Academy, when marriages happen, both sides are bringing in baggage, some good, some bad. Low self-esteem is one of those baggages that we bring into the marriage that we never have addressed. And because of that, usually the outcome spills over into the marriage, causing issues, causing problems. And unfortunately, we start looking outside of the marriage for answers. We start because that's also a habit that we formed growing up. We dealt with self-esteem. We got a little attention from a teacher, from a classmate, from a coach, from a friend, and we that fed us. So as an now a learned behavior. So as an adult in the marriage, we suffer low self-esteem, something that the spouse is not providing for, something that we can't even provide for ourselves because instead of looking internally, we start looking externally, and thus there goes the answer. Again, learned behavior, some co-worker, as Janella talked about, some stranger, somebody we just met, start giving us that attention, and that childhood satisfaction comes back, and we give into it.
I like what you said. In essence, if I had to shrink down what you're saying, the issue predates the marriage. It wasn't created in the marriage, it predates it. And to your point, we bring oftentimes the residue, right, from our past hurts and pains, childhood upbringing, previous relationships. We bring that over into the current relationship and it causes a problem. And so this whole notion of, hey, babe, it wasn't you, it's really me. Now, it sounds like a cop out, but it's actually the truth. It's
Yes.
actually the truth. And oftentimes the hurt partner, the betrayed spouse, has to somehow rationalize in his or her mind that it must have been something that they weren't doing, how they weren't showing up, how
Yes.
somehow they were off. They could no, but it was an internal struggle that that person had. And so, because of my own self worth and self esteem, I'm seeking validation in you. Now, this is the trick because in the beginning of the relationship, you will compliment me. In the beginning of the relationship, you would give me attention and affection, and we were close, and it was all good, right? It was what we call the language of attraction. We were all over
Mhm.
each other, and then something happened. Normalcy took place. We went from new
Yes.
to normal, right? And so now that things are normal, and I'm no longer getting from you what I once got from you. See, you didn't realize that I had a hole and that you were
Mm.
filling a deficit. And because you're no longer doing what you once did to the degree that you're doing it, and to your point, someone on the job now is, my low self esteem drives me over in a direction where because I have a need
Yes.
to feel good. I have a need to be built up. I have a need to be validated. And because you're not meeting that need, and this person is, or maybe to not to the degree or in the same way. Maybe for you, I don't believe that is genuine and comes from you because you have to say that you're my wife. But this is authentic. This is real. And that lack of self-worth causes me to do what I did. So this is why we say a commitment to personal growth and self-development is the most attractive, sexiest trait that a person can have, because it allows one to look at oneself and says, listen, I know that there's things in me that need to change. If they don't change, I'm going to continue to do the same thing. And that's why your individual recovery process is so critically important in the healing process and moving forward. So number one, low self-esteem, seeking validation. This is a huge piece. And I think if people are completely honest with themselves, they will realize that this may be a main contributor to why I did what I did. And so security can be built back into your spouse when you begin to work on you. That's the key. Number two, let's go to it. I felt unheard, and my partner was unresponsive to my pleas for change. Now, when we talk about types of an affair, this is where the marital void or the open ended marriage comes into play in terms of a type of an affair. There were issues here. I would come to you. We would talk about it. You didn't respond. You acted like you didn't care. And so, as a consequence, I went out and I got from someone else what I felt like I couldn't get from home. I want you two to speak to that. Janella, jump in.
Wow, that one is so huge. And it's not a gender thing. It can happen on both sides, male and female. You have your needs, you're coming to your spouse, you're like, babe, I just need something from you, and you're just not getting it. And once again, when those needs are not met at home, the door is open. Those different types of affairs begin, the emotional affair, the physical affair, because so many things are not being met at home. And I think what happens is we get into the busyness of life and we begin to kind of take one another for granted and think that, the person will always be here, or look, that's my spouse. You're supposed to understand I'm working. I got to take care of family. And your spouse is like, hey, I'm over here. I still have needs. Yes, I know it's not the hot dating courtship we used to have, and the busyness of life has set in, but I still need you. I still need you to be present with me. I'm coming to you day in and day out, and you're just putting more and more responsibilities in front of me. So what has happened, we have this wedge between us, and we're growing further and further apart. So, it may start off as just a small complaint, or, babe, we're not dating, or we're not going out. You're not complimenting. But guess what? That list is growing taller and taller, and the distance is getting wider and wider. And this is huge in the relationships, and it actually can cause the demise of a marriage if it's not tackled head on and early.
Powerful. Roderick.
Yeah, I was going to say, Janella, you bring up a good point, and it boils down to the communication piece. And in a relationship, and I know you said it's not gender specific. Well, from a male perspective, as men, sometimes we shy away from sharing our feelings. We shy away from talking about what's really bothering us or what's really on our mind. We have to, maintain this facade. Mm-hmm. So when we do open up to our spouses, when it gets to that point where we become vulnerable and the conversation does not go the way we think it should go, and that's a key term, the way we think it should go, not the way it should go, but the way we think it should go, then that's when we start shutting down. That's when we feel we're not being heard. That's when we feel like the disconnect that you talked about, which is crucial. Mm-hmm. If there's no disconnect, there can be no intimacy. No intimacy for a man, and usually that means physical touch. I'm not just talking about sexual intimacy, but physical touch. Then that's where that man really feels and starts seeking, the answers per se. So it all starts with the communication. It all starts with, again, internal in that man, understanding that, hey, it's okay to feel the way I'm feeling, but yet it's not okay for me not to share what I'm feeling with my spouse, who I say I love, and we are one.
I mean, you two are hitting it right on the head. When I think about this, one word comes to mind, and this is something that we could definitely do a show on, but the reason for this is neglect. I think neglect sets in for many couples too early in a relationship. I think we do everything that leads to I do, but then once we have the ring, like the goal has been met, I'm good now. I no longer have to do what I once did. I no longer have to woo you the way that I did. I no longer have to meet your attention and your needs because guess what? There's other priorities: work, school, kids, ministry, whatever, whatever. And the relationship is not prioritized to the degree that it was. And so we had this high expectation of what would be, and then we were hit with the reality of what is. And so as a result of that, it's just like, man, I feel neglected. And because I felt neglected, I was willing to risk it all to connect with somebody that would meet a need in me that was not being met at the time. So these are the things that we really have to deal with. These are the hard conversations that we have to have. Listen, guys, you're watching the Couples Academy show. We're talking about why I cheated on my partner. The chat is blowing up. We're about to get to it, but stay right there. We'll be right back after this quick break.
When 45 men from all walks of life come together in one place for one purpose, there is a collective harmony that produces an amplification of power that leaves an impact on the lives of men that cannot be erased. A fraternity of legendary men, all at the tipping point, on the precipice of greatness, meeting for one weekend to turn their worlds inside out. For the first time ever, the Foundry experience. Not an event, not a seminar or retreat, but an opportunity to come face to face with the man you were always destined to be. If you want a life that's better than the one that you are living, meet us January 2023 for the Foundry experience.
If you're a man and you have a pulse, If you're a man and you have a pulse, then you need to join this program. You're a husband, you're a father, you're a leader. You have the weight of the world on your shoulders. You have to be everything for everyone, but do you know who and how to be for you? You're still in search of your own significance. You're in internal battle with your own vices. You're questioning, do I even know what it means to be a man? I know I'm supposed to be there for others, but what about me? The fact is, you need a model. You need a code to live by, a system of principles to govern your life. You need an internal compass to guide your every decision. You need the 4 securities to build your own kingdom. What you need is the Foundry. In short, a foundry is a facility where castings are produced by melting metal, pouring liquid metal into a mold, and then allowing it to solidify. Well, this is where we're testing the metal of men. Foundry is a 12-week men's-only coaching program. It is a brotherhood that will take each man through a purification process of the heart, mind, and soul. We here at Couples Academy promise you that if you give us 12 weeks of your life, you will no longer recognize it. If you care about the improving of your life, your marriage, and your family, register today. Hey guys, we're back. You're watching the Couples Academy show. We're talking about why I cheated on my spouse. I knew that the chat box was going to blow up this morning, so we're going to go right to it. Tiffany says, "My husband can't tell me why he's emotionally cheated. I've asked me to take me on a journey to help me understand why. Why do you see the betrayed spouse wanting to understand the why?" Let me first say, there's a lot of men that may not know why. There's a lot of women who may not know why they did what they did. They're struggling with the why. And what I would say is that the best thing you can do is sit in front of this computer, your television, and watch these episodes, because what we have seen is that as practitioners, we are articulating an idea that was hard for your spouse to express. And oftentimes, hearing these reasons, they're able to say, that was it. I mean, they hit it right on the head. That's it. And so that's why educating yourself is so critically important. And what we find is that the betrayed spouse is the one who's getting all the education, they're watching all the videos, they're reading all the books. The unfaithful partner typically does not, but it's important for him or her to do so as well, so that they have an understanding as to what led them to the place that they now currently are in. So continue to watch these, because I think it's going to be helpful if you two watch them together. JG says, is there always a reason within the unfaithful? He only has told me I messed up, or it was just for fun. It's been sexual and dating apps to coworkers doing it too. I would say that that is a reason, but there's always a deeper root to that reason. Just like there are levels of truth, levels of wisdom, levels of understanding, I think that yes, we can point to he just was having fun and it was a great sexual experience and everybody in this environment was doing it. And that is true. That is a fact. But there's a deeper dive into that that would allow him to be susceptible to certain things. Why don't you two speak on that?
Definitely. There definitely is a reason why. And sometimes they don't have the words to explain it. And when the more knowledge that you get about it, you'll be able to get to the root issue of it. Maybe he just liked new things. Maybe he just gets bored, and maybe it was something from the childhood, but that is something that it is worth going through, figuring out, and taking our time to do it. So definitely continue to watch the show. Reach out to us if you can't do it alone. And a lot of times you can't, because you just don't have that knowledge base to pull from to identify what the problem is. And if you don't figure it out, you make yourself open to running into this problem throughout your marriage. And who wants to live in a miserable marriage filled with lies, deceit, and just, things that you all don't want? So just reach out.
Yeah, and Hassani, sometimes there's a situation where the betrayer shares the why, and it sounds so simple and easy, and easy should have been avoidable, and I can't believe it was that little that the betrayed spouse never accepts and is always asking. So it causes the betrayer to continue to say, okay, well, let me continue to dive and try to unpack and get answers, because what I've shared is not good enough. And it becomes, an ongoing discussion, an ongoing block, and an ongoing obstacle, which that's when you need to give us a call at Couples Academy and set up a session.
That's a very good point. I have found that when a spouse does know, to your point, and does articulate exactly why, because it's something that the betrayed spouse would never do, could never do for whatever reason, they can't bring themselves to accepting what that reason was. And so therefore, they're still asking, it's got to be something else. It's got to be something more. I refuse to accept that. I just don't get it. How could you? And so I think what happens is, as we're listening to the answer, we're evaluating it and viewing it through our own moral compass, through our own lens. And if we truly want to understand why a partner would do what he or she did, you have to look at it from their perspective. See, this is where the empathy comes in, right? You mean I have to have empathy for the person who cheated on me? Well, if you want to understand it, because by definition, empathy simply means I'm looking through someone else's lenses, I'm hearing through someone else's ears, and I'm feeling with someone else's heart, meaning your spouse. And when you can take yourself out of your position and place yourself into theirs and kind of process it through what they were doing and what they were going through and what was in their mind and what led them to do it, it will give you insight. And so then I ask the question, do you really want to know the reason? Do you truly want to understand, or do you want to drag it out because you know that it's torturous and it keeps them you keep reminding them of what they've done wrong so that they never forget, as if they will forget, right? So you got to question the motive behind the continual need to discover the why. Sometimes it comes from a very legitimate place, and sometimes it comes from a place of just being stuck. Let's go to the next. Latoya says, I don't think women and men can answer that important question of why they cheated, because they will cheat when the relationship is going well. And if you can't stay faithful, just be single, period. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think with that is that happens. Like sometimes someone will cheat when we are perceive that the relationship is going well. You have those. It was just, they didn't see it coming. It was so innocent, the outside relationship. So really, it's just that individual may have something else that's going on that you may not know about, that you're not aware of, and you really think that the relationship is going well. They're showing up, they're doing everything that they need to do, but there's something internal that's going on that you may not be aware of. So you can have a perfect relationship, so you think, and this person may be drawn to outside, people. Some people are serial cheaters and they do have something that's going on with them, but a lot of times there's a problem that actually can be fixed if it's identified and both parties are willing to do the work.
And that is so true, Janelle. I mean, there's always a reason, always a why. There's always something there that drives it. And complacency sometimes set in. Sometimes the betrayer doesn't value the relationship or value their partner the way they should. Sometimes there's self-sabotage. There's some people out there, they cannot live unless there's mess going on, or they can't accept being happy. They self-sabotage. So there is a reason. There is the underlying issue is there is an issue that and sometimes it doesn't come unearthed until the work is done, or until the person is busted or caught or it's brought to light. Then when all eyes see it, that's when it can be addressed. That's when it can be corrected. And I don't agree with once a cheater, always a cheater, because it can be fixed, and it boils down to a decision, a choice, improving the knowledge and the resources that one is given, and a paradigm shift, to sum it up.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's a comment in here I definitely want to get to. I know we're running out of time. It says, so the saying he or she will go out and get what they're not getting from home doesn't necessarily mean that the partner is the reason. If this is the case, why make the partner feel responsible? She then goes on to say, this leads to the partner, in my case, me, feel like I have to do all that I can to fix it because I can't fix it because it keeps happening. I feel flawed, inadequate, or not enough. Then Tiffany weighs in and says, Black Butterfly 1, you better preach. Shake my head. My husband made me feel like this. I'm not sure he knows who he wants to blame. He has said it was all his fault, but has in addition made me feel like it was me. What I would say is that it's both of you. If we're just honest, I think what happens is when the blame shift is a part of the recovery process, and usually that happens in the beginning, like during the discovery phase, until you begin to understand what counseling will bring out. So what happens is if I'm the cheater, I'm going to blame you, and then I'm going to blame myself, and then I'm going to blame the affair partner, and then I'm going to blame circumstances. If I'm the one who's cheated on, I'm going to blame myself, and then I'm going to blame my spouse, and then I'm going to blame the affair partner, and then I'm going to blame circumstances. And so the reality is it's never 100. It's never 100% anything. So think about it. If the issue is me, right? So I'm a serial cheater, right? True. So the major issue, the root of why I'm cheating is me. It could also be true that there were circumstances in our relationship that we both contributed to. You weren't showing up the right way. I wasn't showing up the right way. And because of that situation, it created a pressure of which I responded by cheating. Now, were you a part of the pressure that was created in the relationship? Were you a part of the problem of the relational dynamics that we were struggling with? Yes. Yes. So we see that there are marital patterns, and we can unpack these in another episode, marital patterns that exist in a relationship based upon the dynamic between the two that is unhealthy. And as a result of that dynamic, it creates a vulnerability in the relationship. And I unfortunately respond by cheating. So did you play a role in the relationship? Yes. Were you responsible for my cheating? No, I'm responsible for my cheating, but you played a role and contributed to wherever the unhealth existed in the relationship. So I think what happens is we mix and merge everything together in one instead of kind of breaking it apart and seeing the different components and how one thing can influence and trigger another that leads to a bad decision that a person can ultimately make. So when people say I take no responsibility for where our relationship was, and 99 or 100% of the problem is my spouse and I didn't do anything wrong, is crazy. It's crazy because you were flawed, and you had faults and idiosyncrasies before you said I do. And you brought them into your marriage. And likewise, so did he or she. They brought them into the marriage. And those issues created conflict and crisis, which created a vulnerability, which kept either him or you in a dark place that caused you to do what you did. So I want to draw the distinction now. You're not responsible for your partner's affair, but you played a role in the relationship. Now, if you're in a situation where the relationship was great, because to your point, people do cheat when things are going well. Well, that's a different dynamic. But if we were to measure your relationship on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being perfect and phenomenal, 1 being horrible and horrific, how would you rate the relationship? Okay, so if the relationship wasn't that great, now we know what was a contributing factor to why a spouse may have done what he or she did. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think honestly, people just neglect to have honest conversations.
Yes.
I was thinking of a couple that we counseled, and the in this particular case, the gentleman just kept saying, "Our relationship is perfect. Our relationship is perfect." He said it like maybe 50 times in the session, but he stepped outside his wife like maybe 3 times, and just even while she was pregnant, it was just so many things that was going on. But in his mind, everything was perfect. We have to realize that no one is perfect. So there's always room to improve. There's always room to learn. There's always room to dig deeper in a relationship to get what it is that you want. And sometimes I think couples just forget, what is the purpose of this marriage? What are we
Yes.
doing? Let's come together and figure out where we're going in life and what this relationship means to us. What do we desire to have in this relationship? And I think that people are so focused on personal needs, they forget about their spouse, and then they just begin to look outward for everything, that it just tears the marriage apart. So we just have to bring this thing together and figure out what is it that we want for our marriage, and what are we willing to do to get our relationship where it needs to be.
It boils down to being honest with ourselves, being able to look in the mirror and tell ourselves the truth. Start with ourselves, because if you lie to yourself, you lie to everybody else.
Right.
Start with yourself, telling yourself the truth, how you see yourself, how you see your marriage, and then you can be truthful with everybody else.
I'm gonna read these comments because they're powerful. Hassani, I'm about to throw my shoe at you because you preaching. I know I have a part to play. God's been showing me what I was not doing in the relationship, and that's all we're saying. We both can do more to make the relationship what it needs to be. I believe our foundation and communication has been the biggest issue for sure. An honest conversation has not been had. It grows and festers. Then we have Kimberly, who says sometimes it's just greed, wanting your cake and eating it too. Absolutely. At the end of the day, one of the root issues of cheating is selfishness. It's wanting
Yes.
to please oneself at the expense of your spouse in the relationship. Miss Toy says, you can sex a man down and he will still cheat if he's a serial cheater. It is brokenness inside of him. The fault of the betrayed is trusting and choosing him. So yeah, I mean, definitely there's brokenness within that person that will cause them to do what they did. Man, the comments are just popping. Just give me a few more. Being the betrayed partner, it's always is portrayed or described that it is inevitable and that we have to accept it, and that I should ask why. Then he goes on to say, The cause and effect seems no matter how or what was going on in the relationship, cheating is never what the I or we, the betrayed partner, ever see that as something that. Okay. Do you understand what I'm reading? Because I'm reading words and I'm not understanding. Are you hearing what he's saying?
No. I didn't hear it. I missed it.
Okay.
I think what he's saying, Hassani, is the fact that, in so many words, and I'm going to try to summarize it, regardless of what the betrayed spouse does, they have no control over the action of the betrayer. I hope I summarized that correctly, because that's what I heard.
Got you. Absolutely. Great. Appreciate that. I need an interpreter sometimes because I'm just reading so fast. But guys, like we've only gotten to 2 points.
Oh my goodness.
There are literally 7 things that we're going to bring out in terms of understanding why I cheated on my partner. But I could see that this is a conversation that is resonating with each and every one of you. And we want to let you know that even though we've come to the end of the show, that there are still more points to uncover. So we want you to show up tomorrow. Tomorrow is another day. We're going to do part 2 of why I cheated on my partner. I appreciate all your comments. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow. Listen, sit down with your spouse, watch these videos together, have a conversation. Don't allow the video to be used as a form of weaponizing issues in your relationship, but let you both learn from it, let you both grow from it, and come up with a plan of action. And in the meantime, reach out to us, Couples Academy. We're here. We have amazing practitioners that can guide you through a process for your healing and transformation. But until then, we'll see you tomorrow for another episode. Take care.